Right, greetings everybody. I guess this is not out yet on global, so might as well make a video about it. So this is going to be a follow-up video to the number 3 video that I did recently, just for trial number 2, and I'm going to talk about that. So trial number 2, job level 1, or unit level 120, job level 25, is not particularly that much easier than the level 3. Level 3 is really about managing enemies, and so is level 2, and both of them can end up being quite problematic if you trigger things at the wrong time. Now, before we get too far into this video, I would like to just state something for the record. Somebody asked, should I just start getting all these characters to level? Yeah, preferably. If you are wanting to get Dark Veritas, we're still only at number 3. There's still going to be as well number 4, or what I would assume is the remaining resources to fully reincarnate him, his weapon, and potentially well, no, there will be a number 5 for upgrading his limit burst, as well as when he gets his limit burst in the future. So Dark Veritas still is going to have more to do, and given how difficult and demanding the previous one could be to have certain characters maxed, but that's the key point, certain characters maxed, I say that it would be generally good advice to be making sure that your Veritas units are getting up to 140, that you are starting to get more and more of the crystal balls, as they seem to be just at least 2 would be important, and having a wide variety of equipment is kind of essential, especially ones that can do or prevent status effects. So all of that is really important for what we are going to be looking at today as well. And as such, I mean, this is my team right here that I have, and we are going to look at some of the most frustrating parts of this, as well as some of the changes I made. So starting off with party, this is the video that I used, sorry, misspeaking a little bit there, but the video that I used came from Toseki Monto. This video I will put in the description below. This is the one I used to help get my clear for it, and I did make a few changes. Taking a look, once again, we have 4 Veritas units here, as well as Lucio. Now, starting off with Lucio's build, Lucio has something very important, which is the Sleep Blade, which is from, I think, year 1 of Wotv. Key reason is that you are going to be using the sleep status effect on Dark Veritas trial to essentially take him out, mean that you get a few turns of not having to worry about the DPS that he is doing to you, and that will be a big thing towards victory. Once again, now this build has basically gone about as free to play friendly as you can get. We're looking at Dark Siren, as well as Dark Ramu and Dark Bahamut and Odin, as well as the Stag for Espers here. I would say that they're all pretty essential for making things run smoothly, but vision cards, on the other hand, are almost entirely all low rarity, or all, like, almost all just year 1, year 2 vision cards. So it's very, very low cost. Now we also have reliquaries across the board. Thunder Veritas Bow might be one of the most annoying things, as you may just not have enough medals depending on how well your build is doing. I think that you can probably sub this out for some other magical base bows, but yeah, I can understand if that's a frustrating sticking point. Only 1 crystal orb, and then we have to talk about a certain trust mastery. Well, we'll get to the white cape, the Genji glove, bells, trust masteries from Alaya, as well as the one on Thunder Veritas, which I don't think I personally used, and a nice, good quality spear for Wind Veritas are all on the menu. But let's take a look at something really important back on our screen here, which is this Trust Mastery. Now, this Trust Mastery right here, just wanting to confirm, is a FF5 Trust Mastery. I believe it is Bart's. And one of the reasons that we do want it is because of the AP recovery that is cast upon multiple characters. It's just so incredibly efficient for clearing out this trial. Otherwise, you do need to potentially go through other sources to make sure that your characters have enough AP. And I do actually have a second video that we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's really important. Now, other than that, I have substituted out a few just because I'm missing certain things. I just have a spear like this on my character for right now. It was generally good enough, although, yeah, if you have Wind Veritas' spear, that would be absolutely more preferable. And once again, Glacial Veritas, Ice Veritas, I've also thrown in the Plaswell +6, and it worked out just fine, dealing enough damage. But you do need essentially a bunch of equipment that is at least similar or comparable to this so that you can make it a little bit easier on you. If I was to say the really important stuff, yeah, the Sleep Blade is just so nice and makes things so convenient. It isn't even really about the DPS, that's just not important at all. It's all about casting sleep effectively, cheaply with Lucio, while also doing a bit of damage and just keeping Dark Veritas in the corner, not being able to do anything. Looking at, I've also equipped an Emerald Spyglass, only +3 version, but basically anything that could give me a little bit of extra accuracy. We'll talk about one of the things that I found the most annoying in this a little bit later. So let's check out the video here. Just mute it for a second here, and we'll take a look at some of the character related stuff. Unfortunately, this video, he does kind of go through it a little bit fast. If you're not paying attention, some of the things can flash on screen a little bit too quickly. Water Veritas here does have the healing sub job on her to make sure that she is capable of healing up in case you take too much damage. Was pretty important for me when I cleared it. Wind Veritas here, roughly the same amount of spear. His main job is generally good enough. Also pay attention to support skills. If you need to compare them to what is available on your characters, what you need to have, do use some of the, Wotv calc to check and make sure that you have the correct supports. Supports can be extra sources of speed, and manipulating speed so that we get a good turn order is kind of important for this. Not too terribly much, but we are looking to get under that turn limit. And as you can see a little bit of what some of the other Veritas stats look like here, with Ice Veritas once again going to be our primary sources DPS for this setup. So now going in, the big thing to note is that the initial part of this really isn't that bad. You have a couple of birds which will pretty much can be dealt with very quickly, at least one of them from Ice Veritas. Other than that, we want to be positioning our characters in a very specific way here. As you can see, we're using Lucio and Thunder Veritas to get rid of that second bird so it's not causing us problems, but we are starting to create a plus pattern here, which Water Veritas will be taking advantage of in a second. Wind Veritas casting his haste ability, and Water Veritas now coming into the center and activating her Trust Mastery skill. This is really important for making this fight incredibly smooth, as now you have AP recovery on essentially everyone, and therefore, you're just going to be having a little bit of an easier time doing this. Just now, at this point, what we are waiting for is a certain percentage of HP to be gone from Dark Veritas before we trigger the next part of this fight. This part is just pretty straightforward. Once again, you can go forward just using Lucio, and his regular attack will give you a little bit of space and a little bit of downtime. If you time your turns properly and Lucio gets an attack last before Dark Veritas gets his turn, well then guess what? You can keep him permanently stun locked in a sleep status effect, as he has essentially no resistance to whoever. See? About 50%, he will teleport, and this brings in some of the most annoying parts of this fight. So Dark Veritas comes back full HP up at the top with Flag Glassy, not the thing we're really worried about. If we can just get Lucio in to attack Dark Veritas once at this point, or I do believe there is one other character here, I think it's Water Veritas who has a sleep ability. No, it's Thunder Veritas with the Red Mage job. Then you can basically keep Dark Veritas from being too much of a problem in the fight. Dark Veritas, he will be here now until the end of the fight, but he is not your biggest priority. Other characters are going to be doing more damage to you, so once you can sleep him and keep him in a sleep status effect. Okay, the real problem to deal with is, and just give it 1 second here, would be these two in the bottom. Now, when I've been playing through this, even though I have basically replicated essentially everything that this video has done, I did have some actual issues with Schnack. Schnack has basically just an incredibly high amount of evasion. The Rat too, but the Rat is nowhere near as problematic as he is. After a few number of attacks, I was able to hit him and basically get him down, but Schnack, depending on your setup, will be one of the most annoying things that you have to fight in this fight, because his evasion is incredibly overtuned, and if you are not prepared for it and don't have the correct attacks ready, it can get away from you and he can just start really slashing down. So here you can see anti-dodge ability deployed, Schnack is dead, and we can continue on. Taking care of those units, now we can start heading up and worrying about the other things that we worry about. Mass AoE skill to provide a little protection, and Ice Veritas starting to work a little bit of damage onto Dark Veritas. Once his HP gets low enough, we will get into the next portion of the fight, trigger the Esper to get the field boost. Continuing to work on Flag Glassy just to get her out of this. Casting that sleep. Now Dark Veritas is essentially paralyzed for the rest of the fight. We can attack him to summon our next wave, and this will be the final wave. 2 sub-soldiers along with Ashenmont. Ashenmont, a little bit scary. He is capable of dealing his follow-up attacks as you would expect, and that can potentially get you a little bit close to losing a character. If one character dies in this, well then it's back to the drawing board, since you're trying to clear everything to get all of the upgrade Dark Veritas. For me, through a bunch of my different tests and playthroughs of this map, one of the biggest issues for me was not any of the characters that you've seen so far, although Schnack definitely, through his not being prepared for his evasion, was really annoying to deal with. It was the fact that I worked so hard on killing everyone else. Diablos comes in and uses his attack, creating a dark field, which causes a ton of damage, and without having Dark Veritas potentially under sleep, that can be basically it for you very quickly. So you can see here we focused on Diablos, and that is an important thing that you saw right there. In the same way as what we were dealing with Dark Shiva in number 3, we are actually able to stun Diablos again. Now, we don't have as good of ways of doing that in this matchup, given the positioning and everything, So you do want to be careful. You need to be careful about how much time you are spending on Diablos versus everybody else in here. So we have a bunch of characters at this point. We're going to be firing off one more attack, taking out Glassy very quickly. These guys are going to be casting on some barriers. Worry too much. Putting Dark Veritas under sleep. His HP is starting to drop pretty well at this point. Water Veritas activating some healing abilities, keeping our characters safe and not going to die, which is the last thing. Now here, Lucia going in, a few extra crits, stir this up, and we are able to kill off Dark Veritas a little bit early. For me, I kept him basically just under the sleep status effect while I dealt with the other characters, and it worked quite nicely. Extra stun here from Wind Veritas, putting Diablos very, very close to death. Shouldn't have to worry about him for the fight. Getting some more AP regeneration on Ice Veritas so he can deal enough damage to kill off these other characters. Thunder Veritas using that extra range. As you can see, Ashimon not quite in the range, but if we kill Diablos off, good enough. Making use of that Thunder Field long enough that we don't have to worry about it anymore. Water Veritas firing off her Limit Burst. Potentially. Nope, change of mind. For positioning, maybe, we'll see. Getting rid of some of their resistances so we can just kill them off even faster. Lucio's Limit Burst now, completely able to kill them off, and we just have one last character to worry about, and definitely one that we should be at least a little bit concerned about, but not too. Wind Veritas will take out a pretty big portion of his HP. And Ice Veritas at this point, pretty juiced up, capable of also dealing a good amount of damage. Making sure we're giving our characters enough space. And there you go. Definitely completely doable within the total amounts of turns with this team. I found it to be quite good, but I think that just investing into the Veritas at this point, if you really like them, if you've been working on them, Dark Veritas is essentially the big payoff for it. And I think that he is quite strong and synergizes very well with the new Hero King Mont. Anyway, that you might as well at least consider doing it. If nothing else, it is PvE content, and you know, we should support PvE. Just 1 second, and I'll be back with one last video. And welcome back. Let's take a look at two others. Now, this one is from Kazutomo. I will put this link into the video description so that everybody has access to it. As you can see, this is a build with a lot less. I do believe that this should be number 2. Let me just go ahead and make sure that I'm not just talking out my butt. Yeah. So this one, as you can see, is way more free to play friendly as well, and particularly for people who have their Veritas units built a lot less well. I mean, this is a level 79 Ice Veritas and Earth Veritas at level 99, 79 for Thunder Veritas, and 115 for Wind Veritas. And just taking a peek into here, you can see once again that it goes pretty much similar kind of strategies of dealing with the small characters first, but in this sense you have to be much more careful since your characters are way more brittle here. And so you are going to take more turns. You are going to get way closer to that actual time limit. And yes, don't really want to talk too terribly much about it, but if we go pretty much all the way to the end, we'll see roughly where he ends for the turn timer, as that's one of the things that we are keenly paying attention to. Previous video did it very, very well, very, very quickly, and here you can see turn 49, or action number 49. Okay, so getting it done, but getting it done by the bare minimum. If you're wondering about like what the team looks like that is capable of getting through it, is essentially this, and you are much more under the gun. I personally tried this setup earlier and found it to be not very, very reliable. If you are not copying exactly what you are doing, you will almost certainly essentially go over the actual limit and therefore not be able to complete all of the missions, which is problematic. But again, I will include this video for anybody who wants to try and directly copy this. Now, one last video that I do want to show off is this one right here, which is I built these two characters incredibly well and I don't have much else. Well, here you go. Here is from Wotv Gaming, which has this build, which, as you can see, Lucio, Wind Veritas, and Water Veritas only, with specialized equipment, some of the equipment that we saw previously. Lucio with the cape, bells on Wind Veritas, and that necklace Trust Mastery. I do want to say it is Machery, but I'm not 100% sure, so I'm sorry if I make a mistake. The tortoise ring, as well as some reliquary equipment on here. Espers of Shinryu, Minotaur, and the stag once again. If you want to check out more specifics of how the characters are built, do please watch this video, as he does go through all of it, including Trust Masteries. You may be needing to pause the video at very specific moments to make sure that you are seeing everything that he has for his Trust Mastery stones and whatnot. This one is a much more specific build, and again, speeds and everything important. But taking a look at it, and going through roughly to about when it finishes. Here we can see closer to the end of the fight, Diablos casting a curse status effect on Lucio, which is mildly annoying. Dark Veritas still around to the very end. Now, could you potentially bring another character along? Of course, you could modify this to your own liking. But as you can see, it took roughly about 43 turns. And for people who only have maybe Wind Veritas and Water Veritas, two of the longest Veritases that have been around, Veritas High, whatever, that could end up just being good enough. You could also throw an Ice Veritas. Potentially, I could see very easily with this setup, and include the new Water Ice Veritas vision card to make this much bulletproof. But anyway, that is it. That is a look at 3 potential possible teams for clearing number 2. If there's something I'm going to say very quickly, it's that Schnack might be one of the most annoying points, as sometimes his evasion can seem a little bit illogical as to what's going on. So be very careful when dealing with that character and clear him out quickly before he can cause problems. Sleep status effect, however, is very, very good for keeping Dark Veritas paralyzed through the entire fight. So just be careful, deal enough damage, and you should be able to get through it in a relatively good amount of turns with no problem whatsoever. Hope that helped. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Later.